Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, your host. As always, let's get after it. Today, I want to talk about a bourbon that I honestly think gets ignored. It gets overlooked, and straight up, I think it gets disrespected. And no, I'm not talking about a hype bottle. And this isn't something people are flipping in the parking lot behind the liquor barn. This is a bottle that's been quietly, patiently sitting on shelves while everybody else argues about Buffalo Trace daily releases and hazmat proof points. And let me tell you why I'm doing this episode. Well, okay, I've got a couple reasons. There's always reasons. Number one, it's cool content. But I actually saw a news story on what some website called The Manual. Never heard of these cats, but it came up in my feed, of course, right? I guess they heard me talking about underrated bourbons one day. Anyway, it came up in my feed, and as I scrolled through this news article, I noticed. Okay, I didn't notice. It was missing one very important bottle in my mind. Now, they listed, and these are the most underrated bottles, mind you. They listed the manual, okay? They listed, and I'm going to say them real quick, the most underrated bourbons: Garrison Brothers. Fair point. Wild Turkey Rare Breed. I think that's a fair point. Noah's Mill. Well, it depends on which batch of Noah's Mill you get. I've had good ones. I've had bad ones. Overall, I'd say underrated. Old Forester 100. Definitely underrated. Widow Jane. Not a fan. Maker's Mark Cask Strength. Definitely, especially for the price. Old Granddad 114. Another underrated one, although I think it's getting more respect now than ever before. And they listed a couple others. Now, these are some solid picks that they sometimes fly under the radar. But the bottle that nobody ever says, Old Forester Statesman. And I think the reason it doesn't get much love has less to do with what's in the bottle and more to do with what isn't in the bottle. It's not rare. It's not limited. It doesn't come out on a strict schedule with 4 blessed releases every single year. It just exists. And in today's bourbon world, that almost feels like a crime or a curse, right? There's no fanfare. There's no 21 gun salute. There's nothing. It's just there on the shelf. But before I taste it today, I want to talk about where it came from, because context matters and history matters. You guys know I'm a big history buff, and I promise I'm going to try to be brief. Like I always try to do 2 minutes of history. Today we're going to try to do 1 minute of history. I'm going to try to get through this a little quicker today. I've had some whiskey freaks say, hey, and I said, all right, yes, gotcha. So Old Forester has real history, and we're talking 1870 George Garvin Brown selling bourbon in sealed glass bottles, so people knew they weren't getting screwed and they weren't getting watered down garbage. And that little trick alone put Old Forester on the map. It put them in rare company right off the bat. And the brand actually helped define what American whiskey even is. And this is a crazy story, but it's absolutely true, y'all. Statesman itself, straight bourbon whiskey, it showed up in 2017, and it was tied to the movie Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I don't know if y'all have seen the Kingsman series. I've seen Kingsman: Golden Circle. It's kind of a James Bond meets The Fugitive. It's pretty great, almost like a John Wick. A lot of killing, a lot of shooting, a lot of bad words. Pretty good movie. And normally when you hear movie tie-in to bourbon, your expectations drop immediately. Real talk, I thought, this sounds like bullshit to me. But that didn't happen here. Statesman, stuck around. It's become a regular release from our good friends at Old Forester. Why, I'm not completely sure, but it did. And that tells me Old Forester actually believed in it, at least at one point in time. This wasn't a novelty. Well, it was a novelty. But now it's a bourbon, or at least it was a bourbon they thought deserved a permanent spot in their lineup. And honestly, I respect that a lot more than I respect brands that churn out 4 damn releases a year, no matter what the quality, no matter what the demand is. If the calendar says it, we're going to do it. And So I respect that Old Forester has kept Statesman around. Now, that being said, I've heard some other podcasts. I've heard news releases. I've seen videos from Old Forester spokespeople, ambassadors, all that good stuff. And not one of them even so much as mentions Statesman when they talk about Old Forester and the history and their lineup. Not one. So today I'm going to show Statesman a little love. Now let's talk about what's actually in the bottle. Statesman. Holding it right here in my hot little hand. It is a straight bourbon whiskey and it's bottled at 95 proof. And that means it's got more backbone than, say, Old Forester 86, which, by the way, I reviewed Old Forester 86 last year. Pretty decent episode, if I don't say so myself. You might want to check that out. So, Statesman is 95 proof. And sadly, there's no age statement. But based on how Old Forester runs their warehouses, most folks figure it's somewhere around 4 to 6 years old. And so we're just going to go with that for now. Like I said, kind of going to burn through this review today. Now, what we do know for sure, what the good folks at Old Forester do tell us about these barrels, the barrels are pulled from, quote, hotter parts of the warehouse, spots where you'd expect the whiskey to have more interaction with the wood inside the barrel. I think the idea is more flavor without pushing the age too far. And they're most likely heat cycled, so that speeds up the maturation process, at least to a degree. So it's a blend of 4 to 6 year whiskey, but you get the idea. Now, they say they're trying to balance maturity and drinkability instead of seeing how high they can crank the proof. And that's a lot like Maker's Mark does, actually. They always say they age to taste, and it sounds like kind of the same principle here at Old Forester for Statesman. All right, now let's crack this baby open and actually taste it. And this is kind of a quick hit type of episode today. I got no tricks up my sleeve, guys, and we're going to just get down to business. All right, I'm pouring it into my blind tasting podcast etched rocks glass, and I haven't pulled that one out in a while, and I figured, why the hell not? And one day, I'm thinking about selling these etched rocks glasses. They're beautiful. If you want one, if you have any interest in that, let me know. If there's enough interest, I might just crank out a batch for all y'all whiskey freaks. Get a hold of me, blindtastingpodcast@yahoo.com, because I'm an old guy. You can DM me too, Blind Tasting Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. So last time I tasted Statesman was a couple years back at the Troll Pub in Louisville. It's this underground bar with a pretty decent whiskey selection. It's got a cool vibe, got decent food. You might want to check it out if you hit Whiskey Row anytime soon. So this stuff is a beautiful caramel color as I hold it up in my glass to the light. Smells very bright, very fruity. Love that right off the bat. There's some rich caramel in here, and like I said, it's fruity. It's got this beautiful fruity note like cherry, maybe even a little strawberry. I'm kind of getting some strawberry here. Even getting some leather here, which is cool. I you know me, and a leather note, and I know there are varying, well, which kind of leather? Is it shoe leather? Is it a baseball glove? Right now, guys, it's just leather. Like I said, we're not gonna dissect this thing too much today. It's delicious. Okay, it's a delicious nose. Maybe a little dry grass in here, and I don't mean like weed. I mean like actual dry grass, not like, whoa, man, we're smoking some grass. No, it's not that. It's very interesting, and it adds a little bit to the whole dynamic here. Let me get a sip here. Up front, you get this very sweet, right off the bat, very sweet, and it's got this dark, rich caramel going on. Let me get another sip real quick. Maybe a little brown sugar in here too. Now, the mouthfeel is a little thinner to me than the color and the legs that I'm getting in the glass would have led me to believe. That's a little disappointing to me. Again, this is 95 proof. It's 4 to 6 years, heat cycle, all that good stuff. But honestly, overall, Pretty happy about this. Let me get another sip. Yeah, that fruity note in here. It's cherry. And just the slightest, and I hear people saying that they get this sometimes with Old Forester or Brown-Forman products, just the slightest tinge of banana in here. I got to say, it's got richer, deeper notes than, say, Old Forester Cooper's Craft, which I reviewed not but a few months ago. But probably the notes aren't quite as deep as, say, in 1897. This Statesman is solid. Let me get one more sip. Yeah, with each sip comes more happiness. And the finish here is this creamy, this beautiful creamy finish. That 95 proof, it hits just right. You know, I'm usually in the 110 range, but there's no burn here. There's no alcohol and ethanol on the nose, really. I guess we're supposed to say approachable at this point because it's approachable. And the slightest bit of oak I'm getting here is like this smooth, gentle oakiness. It's not a rough, harsh oak flavor, and so that's good. I think what you'd call this an easy drinker. It's got a lower proof point, and I guess I'd call it gentler flavors than, say, 1910 or 1920. And guys, you got to keep in mind, it was designed to be this way, right? It was made, the cats at Old Forester made it specifically for folks who watch action movies, the younger crowd. It's doing, I think, what it was supposed to do. And I almost think, really, if you think about this is pretty interesting. Either by accident or on purpose. I think Old Forester was ahead of its time. Think about it. We've got a glut now, and we're desperately trying to hold on to the existing bourbon and whiskey enthusiasts, and we're trying to bring folks into the fold, so to speak. Old Forester had this idea back in, 2017 with the Kingsman movie? I don't know. Somebody there needs a raise. Look, I say if you know somebody you're trying to bring into the fold, somebody new to bourbon, or even dudes and gals like us who've been in this game for a good while, here's your gateway. Here's your, hey, give this a try. And maybe watch the movie together with these folks. Crack it open while you enjoy one of the Kingsmans. This one's the Golden Circle, I think it was, where the Statesman distillery was pretty prominent in the whole storyline. This thing's got decent flavors, guys. It's got a cool story. It's got a cool vibe and all that, so the kids will love it. It's one of those, what I call every man or every woman type of pour, really. And sometimes I think 1910 or 1920 even drinks a little what you would call strong for some folks. Maybe too intense, maybe intense is a better word. I think Statesman kind of bridges that gap, so to speak. It's between like a crappy 80 proofer or 120 or 115 or 120 proofer, right? And here's the thing. That balance is exactly what some people will call it boring. Anymore, we've trained ourselves, and I talked about hazmat bourbon on a previous episode too. I think it's a fad. But anyway, we've trained ourselves to think that if a bourbon doesn't hit us over the head, it must be missing something. If it isn't high proof or limited edition or controversial, it's not worth talking about. I think that's a mistake. Guys, for this one, there'll be no verdict per se today on the podcast, but I think y'all know I really love this one. Ever since I got a pour from the Troll Pub in Louisville a couple years back, I knew it was going to be a solid pour for me any day of the week. And if you get to Louisville and you don't know where to find a decent pour, go under the street, go underground to the Troll Pub, look it up, you won't be disappointed. And that brings me to the bigger question, or at least a big question that I have. How the hell did we get to a place where availability counts against a whiskey? If Old Forester Statesman were allocated, if it was allocated, would people suddenly love it? If it had batch numbers and a release countdown and it was on the calendar and all the things, would it start showing up on those best of lists? Because I don't think the liquid would change, but I think our perception of the liquid would. We're in a crazy time at that, guys, where some distilleries feel like they have to release something on a set schedule just to stay relevant. I think I'm right. And by God, they're going to give us 4 releases a year, sometimes more, whether we like it or not. It's like Bohica. And if one of them misses, well, too bad. It's already on the blessed released calendar. And me? I'd rather see 1 or 2 outstanding bottles a year that I can actually buy than 4 rushed ones that basically turn into internet arguments. Then there's Statesman, and it feels like the opposite of that. It's not chasing trends, although it was in 2017, I suppose. It's not screaming for attention. It's bridging gaps, and it's helping. I think it could help bring folks into the fold. That's what I believe. Look, take a look out on Al Gore's amazing internet. Not 1, not 2, not 3. No podcasters are blinding it against anything. And if you can prove me wrong and send me a note, because I'm not wrong here, I'll put that on the podcast and eat my words. Kids, Statesman is just a well-made, well-crafted, well-designed, conjured up, whatever it is. It's a bourbon doing exactly what Old Forester intended it to do. And don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying Statesman is the end-all be-all. It's not the best bourbon on the shelf. But what I am saying is it's way better than what it gets credit for. It's reliable. It's balanced. It's available. And in a world obsessed with scarcity, that might be its biggest flaw. And it's like $50 everywhere. You can find it everywhere. It sits next to the other Old Foresters that everybody gets crazy about, right? If you're going to have 1870 and 1910 and all that, and even 1924, if you can bribe somebody at the liquor store for that one, you need to have Statesman right there on the shelf next to it, next to the rest of the lineup. Give it its due. Don't be disrespectful. Pick up a bottle of Statesman. And I hate that Statesman, it probably feels like the redheaded stepchild at Old Forester, right? Like the last kid to be picked for kickball, or remember those days in grade school, guys? So if you've been walking past this bottle because nobody's hyping it up, nobody's getting excited about it, nobody's put it on their top 100, maybe it's time to stop and actually give it a fair pour. Give it some love, my guys. And I want to hear from all y'all. What's the bourbon or whiskey you think gets ignored because it isn't flashy or hyped or scarce enough? Because I got a feeling Old Forester Statesman isn't the only whiskey out there getting the shaft. Please subscribe to the podcast, guys. I know everybody says this crap every time, but if you want the pod to grow even more, follow me on Facebook and the Gram, and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon. We are literally everywhere, and I really appreciate y'all. Well, that's all I got for today, Whiskey Freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your #1 attitudinal bourbon destination.